Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video I'd like to give you guys an update on my chili plants here. What I'll be doing is I'll be pruning them back, getting them ready for spring. This is middle of January now, so these are looking at the worst they're probably going to look all year. It's been dark for most of the winter. They've just recently been getting attacked by aphids as well, so they've started to lose most of the leaves. And the combination of cold temperatures, low light levels, they're really not looking too good. The larger piri is not doing too bad. You can see it's got quite a few leaves left, but the two Apaches down here, they're looking particularly bad. They've nearly lost all their leaves, just a few leaves left. So I'm going to give them a hard prune back. That'll make it easier to treat the aphids. Also, that allows it some space to grow next year when it comes to time to start growing again. So what I'll do first of all is I'll harvest all the chilies and then I'll start pruning. So despite the time of year, I managed to get quite a good harvest from the piri. This is all the decent chilies I managed to get from it. Now there's a few dried out ones that I've just kind of left on the plant and I won't bother harvesting them. And with the Apache, most of these have dried out. They probably would be still fine to eat, but I've still got loads in the freezer from summer and I've got all of these as well to work through. So I've got more than enough chilies, so I'm not going to bother collecting every single one as they're not 100% quality, and as I say, I've got far too many at the time. So these are the two Apache plants. They really aren't looking too good. They were not too bad before Christmas, and then the last 2 or 3 weeks, once the aphids got on them, they've just kind of defoliated them. And with it being so dark here in Scotland, they've really not enjoyed it. The temperature's been around 10 degrees most of the time, maybe up to 14, 16 if it's been a slightly sunnier day, but to be honest, the sunshine at this time of year doesn't really provide any heat for the conservatory, so the only heat is from the heating system. And I have that set so it's around about 12 degrees during the night time and 14 degrees during the day. So these chilies will be going into their third season. They've already had 2 seasons of growth. I find with chilies, you can overwinter in the first winter, no problem, but the second winter is when you start having some issues. Most chili plants seem to be fine, as I say, for the first season. Second season, they crop actually better than the first season, but when it comes into third season, I find their quality starts to diminish quite often. So we'll see how these do. I'm not entirely sure if they will survive. They have lost a lot of leaves, so they're really not looking too healthy. But there's not too much dieback on the stems, and as long as the stems aren't going brown and dying back, these should recover. And to encourage lots of growth and also to get some more flowers on them, I'll need to cut these back hard. If I just left them as they are, what would happen is they'd probably put on a few buds further back. They put on lots of flowers, not many leaves, and they'd be quite weak. But with cutting them hard, it tends to encourage lots of new branches, lots of new leaves, and that way we'll have quite a healthy plant for the season to come. So I'll cut these back really hard, just like I did last year, basically just down to a little stem. You see on this one, there's a few brown branches. These are the actual, some of the branches I cut back to last year, and they just died off, and it resprouted mainly from underneath. So you can see how hard I'm going to trim these. So I'll just trim these now, and I'll show you how they look after that. So that's just 2 Apaches now cut back, nothing much more than a few stems. There is 1 leaf on this, but generally all the leaves have fallen off already. Now the root system shouldn't be too bad, although they've lost a lot of energy from the dark conditions and the aphids. There should still be some energy left in the roots, and because they've removed so many branches, those roots don't have to support so much growth. So this should put on some new shoots. It'll probably leaf up within a few weeks, but it'll be quite slow growth, quite weak growth. Then once it starts getting some more sunlight, it will increase its growth rate and be back to a healthy plant. When it starts putting on strong growth, what I'll then do is I'll take it out of the pot, remove most of the compost and put in fresh compost, because this has been in the same soil now for almost a year and it starts to get a bit weakened with the old soil. Also there could be quite a few old roots in the way as well. Let's have a quick look at the root system now. So you can see that there's not too bad the root system. I think a lot of it is probably rotted off with the weakening from the aphid attack, but you can see there's a few larger roots down there. So I'll see how it does. If the growth comes back very strong, I might leave that, but generally what I do most years with my chili plants is I do replace a lot of the soil, give them fresh compost, and they just seem to grow a lot better for that. So what I'm going to do with these two is I've got some isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to spray the plants, spray the soil. That's to kill off most of the aphids. I'll keep checking them regularly though, make sure no aphids have got past the spray and come back and survive. So I'll give them a good spray, and then I'll put them in my grow box. I need these in a warmer environment. These are tropical plants, and temperatures around 10-12 degrees Celsius here. They're not really enjoying that. They need some much warmer temperatures. So in the grow box should be about 20-25 degrees. It'll also have lots of bright light from the grow lamps, so they should start to respond quite nicely. They can photosynthesize very slightly through the stems, so as long as there's some green stem, I'm not going to worry about it not growing new shoots. It's only if the stems start going brown and there's no shoots that'll start worrying that they might have died. These should survive. I've seen chilies come back from really bad situations. They are quite tough plants. As long as I can get those aphids under control and give them some warmth and give them some light, they should come back. No problem in spring. So what I'll do with these is I spray them and I'll remove any of these old dead leaves on the surface, as that's a good hiding place for aphids. So this Chilli Pruning chili of mine is a much bigger chili. It's not a dwarf one, so that's why it's grown so large. This I'll be doing a very similar method, but this should respond much faster, much more vigorously, because it's not too weak at the moment. It has still got some leaves, it's still photosynthesizing, so although it has got a few stems like this one here that are covered in aphids, and the leaves are starting to die off, it's generally in a lot better shape than the other chili plants. So with a hard prune, this should come back quite well. I think this one is going into its 4th season now. I find the full-size chili plants, because they're a much more vigorous type of plant and they grow much bigger, they seem to survive year after year a lot better. It's the really dwarf varieties which seem to suffer if you grow them for too many years. So we'll see how this does. So 2 growing seasons ago this had 1 shoot. I then cut that down low, and then this last season it's actually put up several shoots. So I think what I'll do is I'll cut off a lot of the shoots right down at the base. I'll just give you a better view. If you look down the base here, you should see there's probably about 4 or 5 main stems. I'm going to remove the 3 weakest ones and just leave the 2 stronger ones. And what will probably happen is it'll grow up nice and straight, and then it'll start branching. What most chilies and peppers as well, what they tend to do is when they put on new growth, they don't put any branches on, especially when they're at a younger stage. And then as soon as they start flowering, they start branching, and then once they start flowering, they keep flowering and they keep branching. So that's why you get these long straight stems down here, and then as it comes up, it forms more of a branch structure. As you can see further up, there's lots of branching. So I'll just go ahead now, cut this down low, and that should respond nicely with nice strong shoots within a few weeks. So the last couple of pepper plants I'd like to show you today are my bell peppers. These are sweet peppers, quite large. I think they've ripened to red. These ones, I had about 5 or 6 of these plants originally, and because I didn't have much space in the conservatory, especially with taking in a lot of the more frost sensitive plants in the winter, I had to get rid of most of them. But I kept 2 just to see how they'd overwinter, and so far they've actually been overwintering better than my chili plants, which I wasn't expecting. For some reason I thought maybe these would do worse than the chilies overwintering, but these are done quite well. As you can see, they've got most of the leaves still. There's a few aphids, but the aphids haven't been attacking them too badly. But I think I'll treat them the same as I have with the other ones. I'm going to cut them back really hard, allow them to regrow. That way I can treat the aphids a bit better, and it just gives them a bit more space to regrow into. Whereas if I leave them at this size, they're taking up a lot of space in the conservatory, and until springtime I'm not going to have much space in here. So I need to reduce their size a little bit, make them more manageable, probably put them in the grow box until they start growing, and then they'll go back into the conservatory. Probably a bit quicker than the chilies, especially as these seem to be doing not too bad in these dark cold conditions. I don't think these will need quite as much time in the grow box to build up their energy levels. The only other thing I will need to do with these, I need to do some weeding. You can see there's some weeds popping up in the bottom of them. I planted these up with a mixture of soil from my parents' garden and compost, so there were some weed seeds in there. I had been keeping on top of the weeds over the summer, but over autumn and winter I've kind of stopped weeding them, so that needs a quick weed as well. So I'll just go ahead, very similar kind of pruning. I'm going to prune them back to probably the first couple of stems that branch. They should then resprout, they should grow away, and we'll see how they do in their second year. As I say, I've never grown sweet peppers for a second year before. I normally only just grow them for 1 year, then when the frost kills them I just replace them next year with newly grown ones. So I'll see how these do, and anyway I'll get started now and cut them back. So that's them now all pruned back and tidied up. As you can see in this one here, we have actually got some decent leaves on this one still, so when I cut that back the lower down section still has some leaves on it. I would ideally like to keep as many leaves as possible. The more leaves it has, the more energy it can make from the grow lamps. The other plants will be a little bit slower to respond, I would think, because they won't be able to photosynthesize much at all. They can photosynthesize slightly through the stems, but basically they'll be using all their reserved energy from their roots to start the growth and the first set of leaves. With this one on the left, that one should grow faster because it's already got leaves established. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use soapy water and a sponge. I'm going to wash over all the stems to kill off any aphids that might be remaining. The smaller plants, as I said, I'll spray them with isopropyl alcohol. I don't have a huge amount at the moment because the prices have gone way up since the coronavirus. So I've only got a little bit of isopropyl alcohol left, so I'll just prioritise that for the 2 Apache chilies. The other plants, a soap wash, and that should be good enough for them. But what we'll have to do is make sure there's no aphids coming back. When these plants first start putting out the new leaves, they'll be very young, very fresh, and exactly what the aphids are looking for growing and for feeding on. And the plants will be really, really weak because they've used up all the spare energy that they've had stored up in their roots. So any attack from the aphids at that stage will be critical and it could kill them. So I'll need to make sure I keep a very close eye, checking it almost every day when the new shoots do appear, that there's no aphids on there. And if there is any aphids, I either spray them with isopropyl alcohol or I wipe them off with some soapy water. That's just to get rid of them and kill them. If I let them grow, they would multiply very rapidly on the fresh young shoots and probably kill the plant. So that's all for this update. It's probably going to be a couple of months until you see another update from these. These are going to take a little while to get going, to get re-established, especially as they really are quite sick. And I only have limited space on the grow lamps, and if I don't have them on the grow lamps, it's too dark here in Scotland, they won't grow very well. So we'll see how they do. I should expect some healthier looking plants in the next update. Next update, as I say, will be probably changing out the compost. Once I've done that, the growth should be quite rapid, because by then we should be getting some decent sunshine again, and the roots will be getting established in nice new fresh compost.